We appreciated how this proposition for an urban hotel, Champions Park Hotel, combined not only careful consideration of its primary program, but also considered social interaction for the community at the ground floor entry as well as the communal space on the roof level. The project was clearly explained with the site analysis and concept development of the two massing elements, and we admired the attention to the facade treatment, from the shading elements to the specific glass types. The project seems sensitive to its context, both socially and environmentally.
This award is for the Pukao Hospital in Nanjing, China. The new building plays off the forms of two existing buildings and creates this wonderful common space between the entire complex that is a really nice arrival space. And we really appreciated how nature was brought into this project, especially thinking about nature as a healing element within a medical setting. And the form of the building, there's a softness to it that we also really liked. The building is sheathed in a lattice grid that's very delicate, and as it forms the parapet, it becomes very lacy against the sky. I think that we all could imagine going out to the gardens either as a patient or a visitor, and it has a wonderful concourse at the first level. And here in Houston, just going to all these buildings here, the sense of arrival in our medical center is so horrible. This is like literally like an oasis.
For the Virginia farmhouse, we actually moved this project from the residential category to the restoration category because of the careful restraint to the original house shown and how unsympathetic past alterations were reworked and new additions added. There were also freestanding additions that were new programming that were placed away from the main house, which also helped to keep the focus on the original structure, and we appreciated that.
This award is for the Rouse City Hall in Winchester, Virginia. It's a 1900s civic building built to house various government services, including a courtroom, an ornate theater, and a Masonic lodge. There were prior renovations in the 1950s and 1980s. The design team removed the 1980s postmodern edition, and then their approach was to enhance existing features of the building, and then all the new elements were to be of a more modern vocabulary. And they did this in a very successful way. I think what we appreciated was how every space was just carefully examined and really unearthed for opportunities to express existing elements within the building, whether they're columns or beams, or for example, the existing box office was brought back to life and renovated. And then in hiding the mechanical systems, they used throughout the building a series of ceiling trays where the perimeter walls were left intact up to their full height. So that created a consistent vocabulary throughout the project. Really great project.
Regarding the Fogler Shakespeare Library, first, what an amazing example of strict classicism. The jury was very impressed with the sensitivity, rigor of exploration, and the precision of the conservation effort. For the St. Michael's Retreat project, we liked the siding of this house, the massing, and how the interior layout and spaces were resolved. The use of restraint detailing along with the glass hyphens create a reinterpretation of the classic typology that is open and full of light.
We could imagine coming to this small dwelling, Studio MP2, behind an existing building of mixed uses, walking through that alley, and arriving at this little gem of unfolding domestic use. The diverse yet complementary materials give cues to circulation and programmatic use. The detailing was well considered, and we also appreciated the presentation itself, with a strong concept and spatial analysis drawings that supported that concept.
"3347 Sheffield Court is a wonderful renovation of a mid-20th century house. The modifications to the original house lend to contemporary needs while embracing the original design to produce a result that is both respectful and new.
From the first provocative glimpse of a new element appearing over its humble one-story garage envelope and context, we came to understand Auto House as a well-thought-out residence that unfolds beyond. The garage has new meaning for a client who embraces the car, and an inserted stair takes us to a very expansive living space. The axonometric drawing reveals how the structure is used in a most practical way, while also layering and giving definition to that large open area. The ordinary is elevated to a new domestic realm. Several of the jurors commented, "I could live there."
This award is for the Crooked Bow Tie House, which should win an award just for the name alone. The house is perched on a sloped site at the top of a scenic ridgeline overlooking the great Cacapon River Valley. And this is a project that we kept coming back to as we went through the submittals, and it really stood out. Its angular form was in contrast with most of the other projects that were very orthogonal or rectilinear. And we appreciated the way as you walked around the house, the form kept shifting and really worked with the landscape. And you can see this as you look at how the house sits on the contours on the site plan. And it also has a very animated quality to it that we liked. And I think the view that really sold us was as you're standing at the rear of the kitchen and you look at this very kind of modest approach where the house is almost compressed at that point, and then it unfolds outward and downward. It's a very nice project.
The Franson House, unassuming from the street and glorious from the rear, is packed into a constrained form to minimize the footprint on the landscape, with expansive views of the steeply wooded site.
This award is for the Dual Modern House. This is an addition to an existing small mid-century modern house. And what we appreciated about this addition is really just how inventive it is. You know, usually when you're adding on to a house like this, you're confronted with, do you make the addition, in keeping with the existing house exactly, or do you do a totally contrasting modern addition? But in this case, it's just a very inventive modern addition, but it still picks up a lot of language of the existing house. And so there's a link that separates the house from the addition, and it stair steps up as the site steps up. And this creates an opportunity for a green roof. And when you look at the cross section through this entire link, you have some wonderful views through the space and across the roof. And the addition itself is 2 shed volumes that have been pulled apart, mirroring the gable of the original house, letting in light above through the clear story windows.
The jury unanimously admired this renovation in historic Georgetown, taking a small traditional row house and reimagining it as an open modern dwelling. The street facade was respectfully maintained and key interior materials were preserved, all while expanding the program for family needs. In the long, narrow volume, natural light was skillfully brought into the interior spaces. Quality of detail is beautifully evident in the collective areas such as the kitchen and the garden, but careful design decisions extend all the way to the children's bedroom. The project is elegant in plan and section, with a restrained yet rich palette of finishes, from original brick and stone to the new flooring and expansive garden window. All make the experience of moving through the project a spatial delight.
The Stony Brook University building impressed the jury with the well-executed glazing pattern. The scale and design of glazing patterns are tricky and often don't achieve the intentions of the design group. This glazing pattern not only achieved an energy savings, but also nicely broke down the scale of the large building and camouflaged the mullions on the facade. And then as the building turns the corner, the metal panels are very well integrated with the glazing. Well done, congratulations. The Children's National Hospital Imaging Center was a project that really impressed the jury for its attention to detail and meticulous execution of the concept. The design team here achieved the goal that they set out to achieve. Having personally been in these types of spaces, I really appreciated the rigorous articulation and follow-through of the theme and feel that it really does achieve a sense of distraction and comfort for the users. Although a small footprint, the space has the power to generate quite a large and important positive experience. Well done. Congratulations.
The energy and meaning created between these 2 buildings, the historic one-room schoolhouse and the new independent school, for me is where the energy and the strength of this project lies. The exterior form wonderfully echoes that of the historic building, and the floor plan clearly articulates the typology or the pedagogy, the type of learning that is going to happen there. For me, the form making is innovative with the geometries, especially with the way the roof captures the 2 stair towers at either end, creating that beautiful overhang between. And then the rhythm of the windows on the south facade continues that conversation between the 2 buildings and really creates a spectacular sort of interaction, whether it's day or night. The hope would be that that conversation started by saving the historic schoolhouse is one that goes deeper over time and with the use of the building. So excellent project. Thank you for the work that you've done.
For the Marvin Gaye Recreation Center, we admired the architect's skill in taking the liabilities of a very challenging site in the floodplain and using those constraints to inform a design that is sustainable, resilient, and one that becomes a real asset to the community.
Powell Elementary was a project that stood out to the jury for its clever use of simple materials in order to make a statement and bring the issue of sustainability and wellness to the forefront for users and for the larger local community. This project was also challenging in that it had to deal with two existing buildings from two different generations. The design for the addition was successful in being respectful to and harmonious with the previous structures, while creating a building that is definitely of the present. And all of that with a tight budget that public schools tend to have. So congratulations to a job well done.
Transformational is the word that I would have to use to describe this project. On all levels, for equity, inclusion, sustainability. The project was wonderfully and simply explained. It hit all the different criteria for contextuality, for functionality, for serving the community. It hit it on all those levels. I'll even say it really does help to show those smiling faces to understand how important the building is to that community. I think what was wonderful about it is the ability to reuse the existing facility space, but to upgrade it for the users. I think what you did was take a building that had daylight but maybe no views, and gave it those views at the center of the courtyard.
The success of the project at 333 lies in the combination of just a handful of key elements. The first being a refined and restrained material palette, consistently detailed from beginning to end. And with the designer's clever lighting scheme, what you get is a piece of architecture that is elevated beyond just a mere interior renovation project.
Convene at Hamilton Square is a project that hits the viewer at two levels, which is something that as a jury we really appreciated. First, the composition, the materials, the layout, the execution is beautifully done. So at first look, it appeals to you on that macro scale. But then you start to notice all of the exquisite detailing with the red stitching that is carried through at different scales in the project. That attention to detail and execution is a differentiator between this and other interior projects. Well done. Congratulations.
What struck us about this project was the actual interior architecture, that you were actually sculpting space, and it wasn't just about the application of products to surfaces. The aviation concept was strong and kept throughout all the planes of the space, floors, walls, ceilings, and I really appreciated the use of line and color and materiality to again express that aviation theme. It was a design where form and architecture continued to explore what that space could be and how it could be affected. So I think that was probably what was very strong about this project for us.
The NCARB headquarters project received unanimous praise from the jury. It's a beautiful project that exemplifies an exquisitely designed and executed concept. Always in projects, but in particular in interior design projects, there is that tendency to stray from the concept and include elements that maybe are fun and interesting, but that are incongruous with the overall design. That is not the case here. It is evident that the author worked hand in hand with the editor. What you get is a project that is refreshing and balanced, from form making down to the thoughtful detailing. The design team expertly captured the NCARB brand. Well done. Congratulations.
At 13th Street, we really appreciated as the jury the design team's decisions to allow the raw character of the building to show through in the finished product. We felt it made for a very materially rich and tactile work of architecture, especially when juxtaposed against these more modern elements inserted to satisfy the programmatic requirements for affordable market rate housing in an urban setting.
This one was one of the projects that we had no problem all agreeing on was an award winner. What was amazing was the wonderful sense of scale, human scale, that came through just even in the photographs. The project was more successful for the spaces in between than necessarily for the buildings themselves. But that's also something that we can give the architect kudos for the restraint that they showed in creating the buildings and the surfaces and the facades that really celebrated the interaction of people and the movement through the space. I think the eclecticism of the architecture at one point was described as carnival-like, but I think what was great is that it set the stage for the markets and the people to really make this an exciting space to be.
We found the project appeared forward to not only be a compelling design that is both of its time and its place, but also one that shows a way forward in how to design for resiliency in the face of rising sea levels and climate change, and all the while using existing infrastructure to do so. And for all of these reasons and more, we felt that this was worthy of an award of excellence.